Very good. Natasha, we're ready. We're live on Facebook. We are recording the session. Good morning, everyone. This is Ali Azzuddin, Fourth Generation for Education, our special math day. The day started with Dr. Jennifer, who's also attending with us, and we will continue four more sessions about math, about teaching and learning about math. I'm so excited to have Natasha with me. And Natasha, today, more than 50% they are based in Asia. It's their midday. We have some people in North America. So we'd love to know where in North America and what time is it in America now. We have some people watching from Europe and the Middle East. 86% are teachers, and I'm sure this session is really for you because Natasha prepared so many examples of misconception that you can use in your classes. And then we have 50% they find that their student find math easy, and 55 to 50% they say that the student find math difficult. And hopefully, by the end of the day today, we're going to help you to switch the thinking of your student and to enjoy teaching math more. Remember, in the chat, choose all panelists and attendees. It will be a very interactive session. And if you have any question, send it in the Q&A. Natasha, it's for you now.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning from Jeddah. So I would like to welcome everyone to today's session. I really appreciate everyone online taking the time to join today's session. You know, Ali, it's weekend and people are sacrificing their time. So this is really exciting. I hope that all of you and those who you love are safe, especially in those challenging times. So Ali, could I remove this poll?
Yes, yes, you can close it now. Whenever we have a poll, Natasha, you can close it once we're done. And Gabriela is watching from Mexico. It's 12:20 a.m., Natasha.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's great. Okay, so we're gonna start. Little bit about me. I'm moving the slides. Okay, so I'm a very passionate for teaching and learning. That's what I'm gonna start with. 16 years in the field of education, chair of the Association of IB Schools in Saudi Arabia, IB Math Workshop leader and developer, uh, IB accredited school visiting team member and co-author of Oxford IB Math Analysis and Approaches textbook. And of course, this is my email address here. So if you have any queries about today's session or anything that you would like me to reach through, please feel free to contact me through this email address. So today's session, Ali, it's really very, very interesting to me because as a math teacher, I really face those common misconceptions that our students actually always struggle with. So the first part of this webinar, we're going to discuss why is it important to make productive use of mathematics misconceptions, how are misconceptions being created, and how can we as teachers address those misconceptions. I'm gonna start now, Ali. We're gonna launch a Mentimeter. So I know that some of you might be using their smartphones. So that's okay, because if you can see, there is a QR code that you can scan on the right corner if you're using your smartphone. Ali, could you please find the link, copy the link and the code number so I'm gonna share
It's
my
already in the
presentation.
chat. It's already in the chat, Natasha. So you have the link and you have the code, and we would like you to answer the first question that you are seeing. And while we are waiting for your question, let me remind everyone, we are live on Facebook, and then in that chat, please put all panelists and attendees. And the question is, what comes to your mind when you see this image? So we're seeing an image on the screen, and what comes to your mind, feel free to start typing. If your Mentimeter is not working, you can also put the answer in the chat. There is no problem.
Great, great. And Ali, I really, really want to thank you and thank Four Generations for this amazing day. I'm sure it's going to be very productive. I've already attended Dr. Jenny's session and it was great. She did say about technology gremlins. I'm going to say about my kids' gremlins. So if you've seen any of my kids, this will be expected. This is expected. It's normal.
So I'm not able to see the answers, Natasha.
Yes,
Maybe you
yes,
need to
that's
click.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
I have to.
hiding them.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, okay,
Okay,
great.
so here we go. We're seeing all these interaction, and then using a word cloud from the from Mentimeter, and we can see misconception, difficulty. We can see complex exercise, problem. Take it easy. Some teachers are seeing their students doing the same exercise.
I like this. Not
I
again.
can see that. Oh no.
Oh my God. OMG, not again. So
So
it's
yes,
a
this
common
happens. This happens when
truth.
you are checking your student exams or tasks. Yes, Natasha?
Yes, exactly. It's a common one. And we as math teachers, we always face these kind of common misconceptions. I'm looking at the answers. They're very interesting ones,
Mhm.
connecting to the area, misconception, squaring binomial puff, scary, hard. My own kids also.
Yeah.
Danger sign.
Good. So, Natasha, we can continue now and take the discussion further, going back to the photo and the oh no coming in the middle now.
Yes. Oh no. Let's give them just a few more seconds.
So Vishnu, she put in that chat, this is a teachable moment. And this is our whole session today, how we can use these moments of misconception or misunderstanding to be able to teach the student and then check on the misconception and then rectify it if we need to rectify it.
Great, exactly, Ali. That's true. It is a teaching moment.
Mm.
And I'm so happy that some has already mentioned that. Interesting. Okay. So
Okay, so we're going to stop the voting on this question and go back to our main presentation. And I
or
would like to
actually,
invite,
Ali, I'm going to move to the other question. There's one more question.
yes, okay, let's continue. Hi, what
So
about this one?
what's the difference about those errors? So we have both students' responses, one on the right and one on the left. They're both wrong, Ali,
Yeah,
but we want to know what's the difference between those two errors. And again, you can just write as many words as you can, as you want. I think maybe out of 5, maximum of 5 words.
so I've put the link again in the chat if you may be left
Yes.
from the Menti. And then we have 2 errors here on the screen from student 1 and from student 2. Can you tell us what is the difference between these 2 errors? 2 under 3 plus 5 under 12 equals 6 under 12 plus 5 under 12 equal 11 under 12. This is student A. Maybe it's me. And then on the second column, student B, 2 over 3 plus 5 over 12 equal 7 over 15. So look at these 2 errors and let us know using Mentimeter what is the difference between the 2, student A and student B.
I'm going to hide the image in a couple of seconds, Sally, but I just want everyone to see the 2 errors so that they can respond accordingly.
We have many people on Facebook watching us live, and then let me tell them you can also answer the question, even if I'm not putting the link for you, but in that chat, send us what is the difference between the answer and the error of student A and student B, and then I will make sure to read your answer or to read your question if you have any question later on during the webinar. Good, Natasha. Do you want to show us the answers?
Yes, let's go ahead.
Okay, so conceptual understanding and non-conceptual understanding. Student one calculation has a mistake, but the student two has a conceptual misunderstanding. The difference of the understanding, thinking and confusion. Student one had a calculation error, student two had a conceptual error. Student one has a misconception that can be easily solved, but student two has a difficult misconception. And then looking at the Facebook now, Amal is telling us student B has a misconception. And then Basma is inviting her friend to watch the webinar. Good, good, good. So I think many of you were able to find the difference between the student A and the student B, and we're seeing all these answers on Mentimeter. So Natasha, we're ready now to go deeper in the session and look how we are going to use this in teaching and learning, right?
Okay, great, Ali. So I'm going to go back now to my presentation. Okay, let's hope I'm doing this right. Okay, here we go.
Yes.
So, okay. So yes. So when, as most of the people said there, Ali, the difference actually between those two responses is the root of the error. So as you can see, they're both same response to the same fraction problem, adding fraction numbers with unlike denominators. However, if you can see the student on the left, this shows that that student has the understanding of adding fraction numbers with unlike denominators, because the student was finding the common denominator. So both denominators are 12 now, but it seems when he was multiplying the numerator, instead of multiplying the numerator 4 times 2, maybe added the numerator. So this shows that it doesn't actually show a misconception or lack of understanding for the concept of fraction numbers, adding fraction numbers. There is, like some of the people who said that there is a calculation error, but it's not a misconception. Whereas if you look at the second response to the right, you could see that the student lacks understanding of adding fraction numbers. So this leads to misconception. So this is the difference between a mistake where you have a computational error or calculation error and a misconception where the student actually lacks understanding. And this is where we as teachers, we need to interfere, because when you have this kind of misconception, you have to reteach and re-explain. So let's go to the second slide and see if you could, Ali, please set up a poll so that teachers or participants could vote for which response or which problem would they feel that it is beneficial for them to reteach the session or to reteach the concept. So you have, I'm not sure if they can see the presentation, Ali, because the poll.
Yes, they are able to see the presentation, Natasha, and they are able to see the poll. So which of the student response below would require a reteach, number 1 or number 2? And people are voting, and the voting is going in a very fast way. I'm going to give you a few more seconds, and then I'm going to give the answers to Natasha, and hopefully they are answering the right one and they are able to find which one is the mistake or which one is the misconception. And here we go, Natasha. I'm going to give you the results because I can see that everyone agrees that we need to reteach number 1.
Number 1, yes, exactly, Ali. The point is, if we look at the response to the left, so we would see that the student, you can see my cursor, Ali?
Yes, yes.
Just hovering here, that's great, okay. So what the student did here, the student actually, instead of doing the square of -2, the student multiplied 8 by -2, which gave us -16. So this shows a lack of understanding for the concept of order of operations. And that the student is not able to understand that there's a higher order of operation that this student should start with first, which is the power. Now, if we look at the second response, the student has already started performing the power. So -2 to the power 3 is right, -8. Square root of 16 is 4. -8 divided by 4 is -2. So this is a mistake, but it's not a misconception for the order of operations. The student might have forgotten the negative sign, or the student is having issues with dividing integer numbers, but it's not a misconception for the topic, which is the order of operations. So that's why when we have those kind of responses, it's very important for us as teachers to distinguish between misconception and a mistake, which might be a calculation error or any kind of that. So
It's
yes,
very good
you were
that I'm
right.
not teaching math these days, Natasha.
No, I'm sure you would love to teach math after this session, Ali. And it's actually as well for parents because, um, we're going to talk now, Ali, why is it important to make productive use of those misconceptions? Because
Yes.
as you know, Ali, many of us as teachers or parents, we want everything to seem perfect.
And
And we
fast.
expect, yes, and fast, exactly. And this is what we're going to discuss today. So if I go back to the first question is, why is it important to make a productive use of misconceptions? So moving here, and this is something I'm sure that most of you are familiar with Joe Bowler, Dr. Joe. I'm a fan of Joe Bowler, professor, Stanford professor of mathematics education and author of many brilliant books. And Ali, lately we discussed the mathematical mindsets.
Yes.
Yeah, you've read the book. So Joe talks in her book about the importance and the power of mistakes or misconceptions to the brain growth. So what happens is that brain science tells us that every time you make a mistake, a synapse fires in your brain. And synapses are connections of that the brain makes when it's actually growing and making a new pathways. So what do we mean when we say brain growth, Ali? Do we mean that our brain is going to increase in volume? So what is brain growth? No, of course not. Research suggests that there are 3 possible forms of brain growth. When we have a new pathways that can be created, and this is, as you can see here in the picture, it's whenever we have those synapses, when these synapses are firing in our brains. Pathways can be strengthened and pathways can be connected in the brain. So what we're saying here is actually, though it seems that teachers would like everything to seem perfect, but that's not that great maybe to the brain growth. So making mistakes is actually contributing to our brain growth. And this is what brain science tells us. So I always tell my students that the brain is like a muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it gets. So even when they're struggling with those math challenging problems, this is actually where they are learning. Okay, so now we know about these. How can we as teachers contribute to student misconceptions? So I'm sure that this question, Ali, is a
Yes.
little bit awkward. How can teachers contribute to student misconception? So please, what I would like you to do, and I'm one of those teachers who have mentioned any of these statements here in any phase during my teaching period. So I'm sure that most of us did mention any of, I'm just, oh, I'm just, I did mention few statements, but definitely there are a lot of statements. But who, please do select yes if you have ever did say that in your class.
So, did you say to your student, when there is an equal sign, give the answer? When you multiply by 10, just add 0. And if delta below 0, that means there are no solution. And then I can see, Natasha, that maybe you will not be happy with the results. We will see the results in a few seconds. Okay, so Raida, hello Raida. During my teaching years, I never did it. Okay.
Wow.
And let me remind you that when I used to be a child, I've heard this a lot from my math teachers. Some of these statements and many more that we are going to unpack now and explore now with Natasha. I'm going to end the polling here, Natasha, and I'm going to tell you that 64% of the people who are attending with us, they said yes. They mentioned these sentences or this statement when they were teaching. So what would you like to tell us about this? Yes.
Okay, it is expected, Ali, because we as teachers, I think we as teachers inadvertently use those statements or phrases just because we're trying to give shortcuts or tricks to our students. So it happens, and we're using our casual language of mathematics. So we would say when there's an equal sign, just give the answer, give me the answer. But what is actually happening is more than that. These really, really need to exercise caution, because this might really affect students learning. So let's talk about the first one, which is the equal sign. Equal sign acts actually as a barrier to students' learning of early algebra. And this is very important, because we can see that some teachers would read this like in the example here. 5 times 4 is read aloud to students as 5 times 4 gives, or we would read it as 5 times 4 equals. Now, the problem in this is that students might think of equal as an operator sign. It's just for them to perform, or they would look at it as something to do, rather than as looking at the equal sign as equivalence or comparing relationships between two sides. And this is very important, because this concept, there's a huge concept of the equal sign. So it's about comparing, it's about equivalence, it's about building those kind of relationships. So when we just show the students that, or we keep on telling them, 5 times 4 gives, what happens is, look at this question. When they see this kind of question, they would what would they directly do here? What do you think, Ali? What would they do?
I have no idea.
Like when they see 5 times 4 equals, they would directly write it's 20, right? Whereas this is the wrong answer, because they're not comparing both sides, the left and the right hand side. And this is because this is how they are used to analyze or to interpret the equal sign. Yes, as an operator sign. There's a more conceptually powerful way to read it. It would be like saying 5 times 4 is equivalent to, or perhaps use that 5 times 4 is same as. And we have new teachers who are teaching, and those teachers might be relying heavily on textbooks and workbooks. And this is another thing, Ali, because Some workbooks and textbooks, they only show one form of the equal sign.
True.
They only use one form. They don't use the visual representation such as the balance span. So students would not understand that the equal, there's more than that. There's a deeper meaning. It's about equivalence. It's about comparing. It's about relationships. Now look at the second one, and this is very common. You know, when we're multiplying by 10, we've always heard that. When you multiply by 10, just add 0. Actually, this is very, very confusing, and it will really lead to students to struggle, especially when they're working with decimal numbers. Because what if we have 10.5 times 10? If we tell students just add a 0 at the end, this is like 10.50. So you will see how these misconceptions are being built unconsciously by teachers. But you know, it really, there are a lot of things that are happening here. And there is like imprecise statement that is also used when you multiply by 10, just or any base of 10, just shift the decimal point to the right. There is no shifting. The decimal point is not changing. It's there. It's going to stay between the units. For example, in this question, it's going to stay between the ones and the tenths place. It's not changing. There's a more deeper thing happening. When we say to the students add 0, we're ignoring the concept of place value. We're ignoring the concept of base 10. So what is actually happening is that every digit is being shifted to the left. So, and it's the 1 here, it's on the hundreds place, it's going to be now in the thousands place. So there's a deeper concept behind this. Okay.
So Sally is saying, this is my deepest struggle, erasing misconceptions and building new math skills and concepts. And I'm sure, Sally, you would love to watch this session with your teachers in the primary, because those things are coming from the primary teachers. Right, Natasha?
Yeah, it's not only the primary teachers.
And the parents, you mentioned the
Parents,
parents as well.
all of us, because you know, we believe that maybe the speed, we want them, we're teaching them a trick or a shortcut, and you know, we just want our students or our kids to do it fast. But
so I have some people saying middle teachers also, they do the same. So good. We're not just blaming the primary teachers.
There was actually another example, Ali, if I go back, I asked also about the discriminant. And this is something like, I'm a math HL teacher, and I always face this. When the discriminant is less than 0, that means there are no solutions. And when we teach the concept of complex numbers and imaginary numbers, and then we tell students, oh, but there are solutions for this. So will confuse the students. We shouldn't have said from the beginning, there are no solutions. There are no real solutions, because later on we introduce them to imaginary numbers. Okay. So
the chat is on fire, Natasha. People are commenting and agreeing with your ideas and these concrete examples that you are sharing with us.
If there are any questions, Ali, I'm ready to take. So
yeah, the question, I'm going to remind everyone to put them in the Q&A, so I will be able to track them. Okay. So for the moment, I don't have questions. So questions will be coming later on, maybe.
Okay, great. So as we said, Ali, simple things like these actually help in developing these kind of misconceptions in our students. But now again, as teachers, now that we see those misconceptions, what do we do? What do we do with those misconceptions? So what I would like here, I want to see or to listen to other views. If they can reflect on the following code in the chat box. Maybe Ali, you could read the code for us.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to read the quote aloud, and then you are going to comment on the quote in the chat box. So we need to help students see mistakes as opportunities for learning and a natural part of the struggle in learning mathematics. As teachers, we need to create learning environments in which mistakes are openings for discussion and viewed as steps toward deeper understanding.
Okay, so please do reflect on the code. We're just going to give them a few seconds, Ali.
Yeah. So Omar is saying, and remember in the chat box, you need to choose all panelists and attendees so everyone will be able to read your interaction and read your reflections. And again, people are watching us on Facebook, feel free to put your answers and reflection. Omar is saying, reteach, getting then more involved, let one of the students re-explain it. Noor is saying, I agree on this quote. And then I have a question from Maha while the people are typing their comments in the chat. If the students understand that multiply by 10 is moving the point one place to the right, and by 100 is two places to the right, and so on, is it considered misconception?
Okay, so eventually the point is not actually being moved. As I said, the decimal point is there. It's gonna still, if you multiply by 10, by 100, the decimal point will still be the same. What's happening is the digits are moving to the left, and they have to understand that the place value of the digits are being changed. So this will lead to misconception later. So that's why it's better for them to teach it, I guess, through the place value chart so that students can really see what's happening to those digits and how these digits are being changed. So I hope that I answered this question.
Okay, I'm going back to the comments and the reflection. Mistakes are the path towards development. Mistakes are always a tool to know how our student thinks. Big like, I agree. Mistakes are learning experiences. And then changing view towards the student mistakes. This is what's happening now. It's a class culture where the mistakes are steps to the learning. Mistakes are treasure. Every time we do mistakes, we're going one step toward the right answer.
Great, great. That's interesting. So this code is just a reminder, a good reminder, Ali, that part of the learning process is making mistakes. And we as teachers, we have to make sure that our classrooms are safe environments for students to make those mistakes. So as everyone else said, yes, they agree it's good. Mistakes help students to learn. They can learn from mistakes. We can use it as an opportunity for our teaching. However, how do we ensure that we're allowing students to make mistakes? Because some students get scared to say the answer, especially if they know if they're not sure they have the right answer. So it's very important here to remember that we are shifting this kind of mindset from getting the right answer, into the way of thinking and reasoning and sense making. This is what we want students to think of mathematics as: sense making. Okay, so this is one of the tools that I've really tried in my classroom, and I really found it very, very powerful, is the rough draft thinking in mathematics. And Ali, as we have in languages,
Yeah.
when students are writing their assignments, they have to start with a rough draft for their writing. This is something similar exactly for mathematics. Dr. Jansen, a professor of mathematics education in Dagworth University, with her teachers, they looked at principles and practices of rough draft thinking in mathematics. So they found out that there are 3 principles that actually encourages students to explore, refine, and extend their understanding of mathematical concepts. So I'm going to share with you these principles.
So Alavia wrote this in capital letter. I love this. So let's go deeper in this idea and see what do you have for us, Natasha.
Okay, that's great. So the first principle, which is foster a culture supportive of intellectual risk taking. And this principle is about communicating to students that your ideas is what matters here. It's not about the answers, it's your ideas. We're trying to acknowledge their contribution, we're trying to value their ideas. This is what we're trying to do. It's about thinking a process. So when they are doing their draft math thinking, so we can, as teachers, we can suggest some of these principles, such as calling out students' initial rough draft ideas, having students share their ideas with one another and ask for justification and clarification. But most importantly is engage in a non-evaluative routine to discuss students' thinking. Now, this is very important because we as teachers, we have the tendency or the habit of giving evaluative comments or evaluating students' answers like, oh, yes, that's right. That's an excellent answer. Oh, no, that's wrong. Very good. But you know, we have really to avoid giving these comments or keep those evaluative comments to the minimum, because what actually happens here, Ali, and this is really a very, we need to be very careful about this. What happens is those students who receive those comments will not actually listen to other ideas. And the students who have different ideas will be more reluctant now to share their ideas. So once I said, Ali, you did a great job, that's right. Someone else who has a different idea than Ali would be reluctant to share his idea with others. And we don't want to do this. We want to encourage everyone to be sharing their ideas. So instead, because some might ask, what would we do at this stage? Instead, give them feedback in the form of prompts or curiosity. Oh, how did you do that? Oh, where would this lead to? You know, something like that. Questions that gives them a more further their or deepen their thinking.
The attendees in the chat, they are sharing how they are doing it in their classes, what kind of sentences they tell the student, and they are really focusing on the importance of the process and not just finding the right answer. So they agree with the ideas shared by you, Natasha.
Excellent, that's great. So moving now to the second principle, promote the belief that learning mathematics involves revising understanding. So mathematics is an interconnected discipline, and we as teachers, we really need to provide opportunities for students to revise their thinking. So celebrate those moments when students actually relate their ideas to any prior learning topic or recognize new insights. These are some of the practices that we could do, and maybe we could assign a critical friend to each student where that friend could give constructive feedback. Now, one word of caution here is that we really need to be careful not to actually step in as teachers and offer helpful correction or suggestion. So the point here is that we as teachers, and I'm talking about myself, we have the tendency, we want to help to help our students, especially when we see them struggling. So we might step in, to offer help, but this actually discourage students' perseverance. And unconsciously, what's happening here is that we're trying to develop this kind of habit where students would wait for teachers' interference, or which students would wait for the teacher to say whether this is a right or wrong answer. So we really need to be very, very careful when doing this, Ali. So if there are any questions, Ali, before we go to the last, move to the last principle.
We have one question, and then Maha is asking what kind of sentences we need to tell our student in case they do mistakes. And so any recommendation, and this I would like to share it with everyone, so maybe also our attendees, they can share, how do you deal with mistakes, and how do you provide feedback, and how do you push their thinking to go further? So Natasha, any tip from your side?
Okay, that's great. It's very important. I believe, Ali, it's about the power of words. Instead of saying you did not reach to the solution, for example, oh, you haven't reached it yet. We used yet. Or how do you think we can think about this in a different way? Or we don't have to say your answer is wrong, right or wrong. I always tell my students there's no right or wrong answer as long as you are able to justify it and it makes sense. The point here is we really need to encourage this kind of thinking, this kind of, because mathematics is all about reasoning and sense making. It's not about a right or wrong answer. So, how would you think of this in a different way? What if you move this, or kind of questions, prompts, and it's more than just giving the final answer. Even if it's a right answer, do not say
Yeah.
that that's the right answer, because you're gonna stop them from thinking of how to represent it in a different method.
Alavia mentioned the peer teaching and using other students to help in finding the answer and solving the answer. Natasha, just to keep an eye on time, we still have around 15 minutes. I know you still have another kind of a concept that you would like to introduce. And then I will remind everyone that in the Q&A, you can send your question and then we will address them at the end of the webinar.
Okay, actually, Ali, I have the last now principle for this. So
Yes.
as we said, these are three principles for rough draft math thinking. And it is a very, very powerful tool because, again, it's about the thinking process. We're encouraging students to think or to speak loud, to communicate their thinking, to communicate their ideas. And we want to make sure that we as teachers, we are giving them, offering them this safe zone, comfort zone, where they can try and talk about their ideas. So, and in doing that, like by encouraging them, even if it's wrong, I don't like to say that word, but even though, we're encouraging them to continue and, justify their thinking. So the third principle is raise a student's status by expanding what count as a valuable contribution. And this principle focuses on learning rather than answer getting. And I believe that this principle is based on the issues that we got as a result of traditional practices where teachers overvalue answers, correctness, and speed. So instead, we should generate lists of competences to student contribution. So for example, let's say have a poster in class and teach them how to be a good listener. So it is not enough that you got the answer or you shouted out the answer. Be a good listener. Think about other ideas. Think about your peers' responses. Ask clarifying questions. Why? How did this work? Why did it work like that? And be able to represent your way, your response, your answer in a different way, or even represent your peers' ideas in different ways. So these practices help students, to contribute to the discussion that's happening in class, to contribute to their thinking, to be the author of their own understanding. So there's something that we really, really need to be very careful here. Avoid giving comments such as, oh, good job, smart work, that's great. I mean, these are not real. To be honest, these are not real phrases. I mean, they're not authentic. They are not specific. They're not individualized. They won't help the students to know what action they did that is actually valued and why is it valued. So instead, just give statements or phrases that really feedback, that really shows what action they did that is really, really valued here. It's a great way of, for example, exploring quadratics in this question, or using optimization. We need to be specific, because students at the end would know these are just general and they want help. They're not constructive feedback.
We got
Okay.
to give comments that extend the learning, effective feedback. And then this again reminded me of the work of Lance King, who developed all the ATL and is doing a lot of work on ATL. And he mentioned the idea of failing well, Natasha. And so when you do a mistake, it's part of the learning, but then know how do you do the mistake, and then know how do you learn from the mistake to improve and to go deeper in your learning, right?
Exactly, Ali. I mean, I had a teacher who asked me once, so are we saying, in other words, it's good for students to do mistakes? I think, Ali, if students are not doing mistakes, it seems there's something wrong here. We're not challenging them enough.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't need us if they're not doing at all any mistake. So I think we need to challenge students, and this is how the brain works. This is where learning takes place. We need to challenge students. We want them to think outside the box. We want them to create these new pathways in their brain for the brain growth, as Joe Boulder says. So if there are no questions, Ali, I think I'm very, very prompt. Is it a prompt, or actually I'm gonna end this session by a quote?
Yes, let's see the code. Then I have some tips for them, and then I think the question will arrive to the Q&A in the next minute. So, what is your code that you would like to wrap up with?
Okay. So, final reflection, and this is the code that I've actually used as when we had the description for the webinar. It is by the way that a teacher responds to what a pupil offers that he or she validates, or indeed fails to validate, that pupil's attempts to join in the thinking. So I believe, Ali, that construction of knowledge is a social process. And as Barnes suggests here, it is the way that teachers react to students' contribution. This is how it defines students' approach to their learning. So how we as teachers will react, this is what really impacts their learning. And I don't know if you agree with this, Ali, but the teacher plays a very, very important role, and especially in mathematics. I mean, this is where we have so many math concepts.
The feedback in that chat started. Yes, feel free to put for us what are the thinking, what's happening in your brain. And Dania is telling us, Natasha, you gave me a lot of food for thought. I have a lot to work on myself and my approach to teaching. Put your aha moment in that chat. And then the list of questions started growing, Natasha. If you don't mind stopping your screen, I would like to share a few things from my side. And I would like to tell the participants that our day is still full of speakers and ideas. So 3 more sessions. One will be happening in the next 20 minutes. And we will be talking about math and how to connect math to other subjects and to other disciplines like science, like language, and like art. So this is our special day about thinking as a mathematician. And then in the afternoon, we will have a session for the early years teacher and a session about creativity. And many of you this morning, they said that it's very challenging to teach creativity in a math class. Next Saturday, we are having a day full about positive disciplines in Arabic, in French, and in English. So feel free to join us if you are a teacher, a psychologist, or even a parent. For this special day, we are offering certificates. So you can buy the certificates online, and then this will help us to continue offering a special thematic day, bringing our amazing speakers and then learning with each other. Natasha, so my first question will be, how can you address differentiation, take the needs and meet the needs of all your students in the classroom? Any tips about differentiation?
Okay, this is a great topic, Ali. And actually, most teachers do ask about these things. Especially in mathematics, you know that we cannot just start with challenging problems. We always need, and some students might get things before others. So it's very important to use, what I would do with my students is I use different sets of questions for the same concept, and I don't actually label those things. So I wouldn't say, I'm just going to say set one, set two, set three. So, and I would ask from, it's all, they will all achieve the same concept at the end. But I know that students who are less able in mathematics, or they're not that fast in grasping the concept, would work more on set one and would continue working in set one, whereas the others, if they finish, they complete to set the three, then they would go and sit and help work with those groups who are still working in set one. So it's something that I would do it as in groups and differentiating tasks, but again, they would achieve the same concept.
And maybe
So
giving them choice, Natasha, right? So,
yes, you cannot label students like this
yes.
group do set one, set two. That's why I call them sets, different sets.
A lot of thank you in the chats. Munzer, how did you find the session? I would like to know more, your feedback about it. Let us be open with mistakes and give children a different view about it. I always start when I'm running workshops, Natasha, saying that mistakes are part of the learning process. Feel free to highlight it, and they are part of the life. So then let your kids be afraid of the mistakes, especially in our region here in the Middle East. We are afraid of making mistakes, and we are just competing to see who is ranking the first in the classroom. So you are bringing a different perspective about mistakes, and again, how from these mistakes we can find misconception and then reteach the misconception. More questions? More question. So what can we tell students for encouraging them in case they are well done? Any task, or what do you do with those students maybe who are the high achiever in the classroom, Natasha? How do you push their thinking, and how do you take them further?
I would actually, one thing that I would do with them is definitely we can still encourage students and motivate. However, I would tell them, would they be able to represent their response or their idea in a different method? A method that I know that it might not be their comfortable zone.
Mm.
So, I would give them another way of thinking. Could you do that in another method? Could you represent it in another method? So this is where we're challenging them. We're letting them go outside their comfort zone. Like, it's not using their own method. Think about how to represent it using your peers method, for example, or a different method. And something that I want to share, Ali, is, of course, after reading those brilliant and interesting books for Joe Bowler. I have a poster a chart in my classroom where it says celebrate mistakes. And every time, students do something, this is the time, oh, where learning is taking place. And I would just post that mistake there. So they're really proud because, they're doing those mistakes because it's giving opportunity for others, to learn as well. So this is a way
And
or a kind of tip where we can celebrate mistakes actually instead of, making it something that looks like horrible.
yeah, Sally is mentioning that for the high achiever, yes, she give them a different strategy to justify their answers, to teach their peers, and then maybe to explain the concept for a younger student in a younger class. So they need to prepare
Exactly.
presentation about how they understood and how they got that concept. So it's my time to say goodbye for maybe only 15 minutes, because in 15 minutes we are going to do our third session for today, math across the curriculum, looking at very concrete examples, how you can connect math to language, to art, and to science. Stay connected. Go on our website. If you didn't register, you can still do this now. You will get a link. And then if you would like to get a certificate after this session, please feel free also to do it on the website. And I will finish with this beautiful comment. It was really inspiring. I can understand the reason of some of my students just participating now. You made me realize sometimes I give more appreciation on correct answer without actually knowing I'm doing it, especially on distance learning. I'm aware of it now. Thank you. So
That's
you
great.
see,
That's really
Natasha,
great.
this is really beautiful. And as I said, I'm going to log out now for a very short break and then open the new link of our new webinar that will start in the next 15 minutes. You can watch us on Facebook or even live on Zoom. Thank you, everyone, all our Facebook people.
Thanks,
And
Ali.
thank you,
Thank you.
Natasha, again.
Thank you. Thank you. And bye. Bye, everyone.